In this video, we are going to learn about setting up word problems that involve decimal operations. So things like adding or subtracting or multiplying or dividing. So let's begin. We're going to focus more on setting up the word problems in this set of notes, and not so much on actually solving them. But let's go ahead and start with number one. James had a wooden pole that was 5.9 feet tall. He cut 2.4 feet off one end of the pole. How long is the wooden pole now? So he's got this long wooden pole. Lots of ways you can think through this, but imagine he had a giant wooden pole, 5.9 feet long. And then he decides to cut off 2.4 feet. So he cuts some off. How much of it off? 2.4 feet off. So how much of it is left over? They want to know how much this piece is. If the whole thing from here to here was 5.9 and this was 2.4, can we figure out how long this piece was? This piece right here. What operation would help us do that? What's the best way to do that? I'd say subtraction. So we would say 5.9 minus 2.4, because when we subtract, we always subtract the smaller number from the larger number. So minus 2.4. And when we subtract, make sure you line up your decimals, because when you add or subtract, you have to line up your decimals. By the way, 5.9 minus 2.4, I think that is it's 3.5. So our answer is, how long is the wooden pole now? It's 3.5 feet. So there it is. Let's take a look at number two. Mia drove 61.3 miles in an hour. I'm guessing it's supposed to be, let's see, how many hours was it supposed to say? Something cut off? Oh, in an hour. Okay, so Mia drove 61.3 miles in hours. If she keeps driving at the same rate, how far will she drive in 5 hours? I see. Should say she drives 61.3 miles an hour. So if she keeps driving at 61.3 miles an hour, how far will she drive in 5 hours? Well, let's think about this. I think one of the strategies I like to use, so 61.3 miles an hour for 5 hours. One of those strategies I like to use when I'm trying to figure out what operation to use is the strategy is called easy numbers. So let's just think of easier numbers. Let's imagine she's driving 60 miles an hour. So she drives 60 miles an hour. If she keeps driving at the same rate, how far will she drive in 5 hours? Well, she goes 60 in 1 mile. Sorry, 60 in 1 hour. And then she drives another 60 in 2 hours. And then she drives another 60 miles in 3 hours. And then 4, and then 5. Wait a minute. So 60 plus 60 plus 60 plus 60 plus 60. I am adding 60 again and again and again and again, adding it 5 times. Oh, that's the same what that is that's multiplication. So I'm not multiplying 60 times 5. I will be multiplying the actual number, and the actual number being 61.3. I want to multiply 61.3. 61.3 times 5. Now remember, when we multiply, we do not need to line up our decimals. We're just going to ignore it. Pretend this decimal doesn't exist. Get rid of it. Move it out, and then move it back in. So I'm going to cut to the chase. And I'm going to write down the answer. So once you multiply that out, you're going to end up with 3065. And then don't forget to bring your decimal. We have 1 decimal space right here, so we need to bring that 1 decimal back in. So our answer is 306.5. So that's how many miles. Sorry, 306.5 miles is how far she drove. Let's go ahead and go to question number 3. Tiana bought Disneyland tickets for her and her friends. If the total cost for 6 tickets was $698.58, then how much is the cost of 1 ticket? So she bought tickets for her and her friends. 6 tickets. So they bought 6 tickets for this much money. How much is the cost of 1 ticket? Well, again, let's use our strategy, easy numbers. Let's say they bought 6 tickets for $700. Or we can even just say $600. If she bought 6 tickets for $600, can we figure out how much one ticket would cost? Well, 6 tickets for $600. Oh, that's like, you can figure that out in your head, right? That's like $100 per ticket. How do you get 100 from 606? Well, if I did 600 divided by 6, that would get me 100, right? 600 divided by 6, that would be like 600 inside, 6 on the outside, and that would get me 100. So our numbers are not 606, they are 698.58 and 6. So the number that needs to go on the inside would be 698.58. So yeah, I'm just making up easier numbers to kind of get my brain to figure out, like, okay, am I adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? And in this case, division is the best way to go. So when we are dividing numbers, don't forget, we don't have to line up decimals or anything like that. You just have to make sure this outside number does not have a decimal, and it doesn't. So if this doesn't have a decimal, then in our answer area, we're just going to move this decimal straight up, and then we're just going to do regular division. So I'm going to cut to the chase. And divide by 6. If you ended up dividing properly, you should have gotten 116.43. That is how much each ticket costs. All right, let's look at number 4. Number 4. It says, Link leaves home and travels north 2.35 miles. But realizes that he left something at home and needs to go back. If he has walked back 1.9 miles so far, then how much further does he have to go? Ooh, this is a tricky one. I'm going to start by drawing. So he's at home. He goes up to my house, 2.35 miles. And then he realizes he left something at home, so he walks back 1.9 miles. So how much farther does he have to go? So basically, they want to find out how far this is. So if I know the whole thing, the whole distance from here to here is 2.35, and this piece right here is 1.9. How do I figure that out? Well, that's just subtraction. This whole thing minus this piece will get me the distance. So when you subtract, it's usually biggest minus smallest, so 2.35. minus 1.9. So don't forget to line up our decimal. That means 1 over here, 9 over there. And then you're probably going to want to put a little 0 placeholder. So I'm going to cut to the chase. 2.35 minus 1.9. Assuming you know how to subtract properly, how far does Link have to go? Link has another 0.45 miles to go to get back home. Let's do number 5. Fernanda is returning from a trip and must weigh the souvenirs she is bringing home. She has one souvenir that weighs 38.72 pounds and another that weighs 11.4 pounds. What is the total weight of both? Oh, total weight of both. Total weight of both, well, that's easy. That is an addition problem. We are adding up these two things. We have 38.72 pounds. And we also have 11.4 pounds. Don't forget to line up the decimals, which means we have to put a little 0 placeholder right there. And if I add those up right now, let's see, 38.72 plus 11.4, you will get 50.12, 50.12 pounds. That's how much both of her souvenirs weigh. Number 6, Oliver earns 2.4 times more than his nephew, River. If River earns 15.75 an hour, how much does Oliver earn? So Oliver earns 2.4 times more. That is a multiplication problem. How do you know? Well, because it says 2.4 times more. Whenever you see the word times, that normally means we multiply. So 2.4 times more than 15.75. So 15.75 times 2.4. Don't forget, when we multiply the decimal place, we do not have to line up the decimal place. We just have to count it. That's a total of 1. That's a total of 3 decimal places we're going to need to move in once we multiply everything out. Just for, just to do a quick multi-digit multiplication example, I'll go ahead and work this one out. 4 times 5, that is 20, so I got to put a 2 up there and a 0 down there. 4 times 7, that's 20, 24, 28 plus 2. 28 plus 2 is 30. And then now I have 4 times 5, which is 20, plus 3, that's 23. And then finally, 4 times 1, which is 4, plus 2, which is 6. I shouldn't say finally because we're not done yet. So that's 6,300. Okay, I'm done with those. Now I need to multiply with the 2. So before I multiply, I need to add my little 0 placeholder. And I am going to do 2 times 5, which is 10. Then 2 times 7, which is 14, plus 1 is 15. And then 2 times 5, which is 10, plus 1, which is 11. And now 2 times 1, which is 2, plus 1, which is 3. Hopefully I did this okay. If I add those up, 0, 0, 8, 7, 3, just to make sure, I'm going to, let's see. All right. Now I am almost done. I just need to move the decimal 3 spaces in. So 1, 2, 3. So our decimal should go right over here, 37.8. Now we are 37.8 would be kind of a weird answer because we're talking about money, right? So if we're talking about money, we should have 2 decimal places. 37.80 is how much Oliver earns. Let's do number 7. Number 7 says, a car drove 391.28 miles with 13.4 gallons of gas. How far would it be able to travel with 1 gallon of gas? Or another way to ask is, what is the car's mile per gallon? Okay, It drives this far with this much gas. How far will it be able to travel in 1 gallon of gas? If you're struggling with what operation, again, I like to use something called our easy number strategy, which is, let's pretend it says the car drove, I don't know, 400 miles with, instead of 13, let's say 20 gallons of gas. So, heck, you don't even need to use 400. Let's say it went 40 miles with 20 gallons of gas. How far will it be able to go with 1 gas? Well, if it goes 40 miles with 20 gallons of gas, you're breaking this up into 20 pieces. Oh my goodness, if I'm breaking this up, you're dividing it evenly into 20 pieces. Oh, I'm using division, aren't I? And so you're dividing, what are we dividing? We're dividing this big number, this 40, into 20 small pieces. So instead of dividing 40, you're dividing 391 by 13.4. That's what we're going to do. We're dividing this big number by this little number. So it's 391.28 divided by 13.4. How do I set that division problem up? Well, don't forget, this one goes in and this one goes out. First number always goes in. So in 391.28 and out 13.4. Now, whenever we divide, we do not want a decimal on this outside number, so we're going to move that over 1 space to get rid of it. Now we're divided by 13.4, which means we have to move this also 1 space and straight up to our little answer place, so it goes right here. How I'm doing division for this, this one's a complicated one, so I am going to cheat right here. And we're going to find out that our answer is 29.2. So it can go 29.2 miles in with 1 gallon. Last one. Let's take a look at Dylan. Dylan weighs 154.8 pounds, and his sister tells him that she weighs 0.7 times as much as he does. How much does his sister weigh? 0.7 times as much as he does? How do I figure that out? Well, 0.7 times. Whenever you see the word times, you usually multiply, which is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to do 154.8 times 0.7. Now, don't forget, you actually don't need to line up the decimals. In this case, the decimals are lined up, but you kind of don't need to, or you don't need to. It doesn't really matter. But if I multiply that out and I count my decimal spaces and move them back in, you're going to find out that that our answer is 108.36. So she weighs 108.36 pounds. You may be thinking, that's weird. That's smaller than my original number, 154.8. But it should make sense, because if you're multiplying by any number less than 1, you're actually going to get a product that's smaller than your original number. So there it is. This is operations with decimals, word problems. So there are a couple different strategies to figure this out. Most of the addition and subtraction problems are pretty straightforward and easy. It's the division and multiplication problems that give a lot of people trouble, that are kind of difficult to know which operation to do. So if you ever run into that problem, a good strategy is just to use easier numbers for your brain to comprehend, and hopefully your brain is able to figure out which operation is supposed to go with the word problem, and will help you find the answer. So go ahead and try some problems on your own.